Hey guys, Jay Young here with Young Red Angus. Thank you so much for making this video a part of your day. I've got the lovely roar of the irrigation well in the background, the sun, a beautiful sunrise in my face, and I'm fired up and ready to go for today's video because last week we hit 10,000 subscribers and I'm really humbled and encouraged by you guys' support. So thank you so much. For everybody that watches these videos and subscribes to the channel. In today's video, guys, we're going to discuss interseeding cover crops into corn in a dry and arid environment. We typically average 16 inches of rain a year. And so in this video, I want to talk about the benefits of interseeding cover crops into your corn in a dry environment and why there's still a benefit to your corn even with the lack of moisture, and why you want to interseed cover crops in your corn, the challenges that I can see down the road in implementing this large scale, and some things for you guys to think about when you're selecting what cover crops you're going to interseed into your corn. So let's roll the intro and get into it.
This is what we all feel, let's just not deny it. Something pulls and it tears in the deepest place. This is what we all know, why must we still fight it? It's time to open our eyes and acknowledge the writing on the wall.
The cover crop mix talked about in today's video came from Green Cover Seeds. So go to greencover.com to pick out your cover crop seed mix today. The first thing I want to talk about is 3 benefits that I believe come into factor when interseeding cover crops into your corn in a dry environment. The first one is moisture. So our cover crops, since we have more plants out there per acre, they're going to be taking more moisture. The reason why you're still going to see a benefit from the cover crops, even though they're taking moisture, is twofold. One, plants share micronutrients and macronutrients with one another when their roots are connected together in an ecosystem, and they're connected together by mycorrhizal fungus. And so mycorrhizal fungus and saprophytic funguses and other funguses and bacteria bring the plant the micro and macronutrients it needs to have a healthy crop. And so if you have a healthy system because you're interseeding the cover crops out there and those plants are able to share those nutrients with one another, that's going to increase their health and that's going to make them stronger when the rain kind of shuts off. The other thing that you want to think about is that when you have more roots out there, those roots have produced, in a healthy system, they produce aggregates. So root goes down, they have fine root hairs that secrete exudates. The exudates are a glue or a glomalin. They bind soil particles together, which is called creating aggregates. And those aggregates create pore spacing so that when it rains, that you can filtrate the rainwater better. So this is a long-term gain in doing this. You may not see the benefit in the first year, but down the road, you're definitely going to see the benefit. And I feel like I'm seeing the benefit even a little bit this year because there are spots in this field behind me where the planter got plugged because I didn't have my air pressure up high enough, and some of my hose plugged. Some of those rows, the corn is turning yellow on the bottom where I don't have cover crops. And then on this end here, I forgot to turn my planter on the second path in. So this is the first row right here, and then the second pass on the end, I didn't turn the planter on, and some of those rows are burning up and are brown. I'm not saying that that's actually what's happening here. I might have more compaction in that one spot. It doesn't make sense to me that the further out row is green and the inside row is brown. But I think that's a strong possibility. But without being able to do more kind of testing and stuff, I don't want to definitively say that. And it's just something I noticed yesterday, and so I haven't really been able to look into it more than that. The second point that I want to bring up in this video is that, and we kind of talked about it in the first point, is that when plants share macro and micronutrients with one another and they're sharing the nutrients, it creates a healthier fruit, vegetable, or grain. In this particular point, corn is a grain. So and it's going to increase the sugar content. It should increase the protein within the plant, all of those things when the plant is in a healthier system. So that's another reason why, even in a dry environment, that we want to be looking at figuring out what cover crops we can put with the corn that's going to produce the healthiest possible end result for our consumers. So that's another reason why we want to be interseeding cover crops into our corn, so we can find out what is going to produce the healthiest grain possible. The third point in why I think that it's important to do this even in a dry and arid environment is the insect population. The insect population in this field is booming. It's a little less active now because I got up kind of early to try to shoot this video because of the heat. I shot this video yesterday. I was getting mauled by flies, but mainly sweat bees. And so it was rough because the flies were biting me. I didn't want to swat at the fly because I didn't want to get stung by the sweat bees. So this has multiple species of bees out here. I saw a wasp out here, multiple species of butterflies. There goes a sweat bee right over there. And so it's important to be doing these systems because our bee population keeps declining every year in the United States. Our monarch butterflies are going extinct. That's largely because their habitat for breeding, you know, is dwindling off, but it's also because we're spraying so many insecticides to try to kill things like western bean cutworm or spider mites in our area. You know, and other areas have different things that they're trying to kill off. But if we have these predatory insects out here that are going to attack those insects that are attacking our plants, why would we do that? Why are we so focused on our yield in this 1 year and not focused on the long-term effect of what are we doing to our world and our ecosystem by greatly depleting the bees? Like, we have to have bees for the health of our plants. And so it's just crazy to me that we're not even thinking about how we're destroying the bee population. So when you have a cover crop out here like we do, we got a ton of buckwheat out here, it really attracts those insects that are attracted to flowers. So I really want you to think about interseeding cover crops into your corn for those 3 reasons. It's going to increase your drought tolerance over the long haul. It's going to increase the overall health of your plant, and it's going to increase the ecosystem, the health of the ecosystem, and provide a awesome environment for the bees and the other predatory insects to survive. So those are all things I want to encourage you guys to consider when interseeding cover crops into a dry and arid environment. So the next thing I want to talk about is the challenge. You know, in a dry and arid environment, farmers are typically farming more acres. I farm 8,000 acres. That's fairly standard. Like, I know multiple farmers that farm that much or more than me. And so it's going to be a challenge to figure out, like, even if this works, how do you do it large scale and get everything planted in the season and the time frame that you have to plant your cover crops? And so planting them, you know, at different stages, you know, we get this interseeded at anywhere from V2 to V6. And so V2 to V6 is a huge difference on how the plants are going to respond to the canopy from the corn and how they're going to respond growing within the corn. And so the canopy isn't really that big of an effect when you have as low of a population as I do. Like, I think this field out here is 13,000. We planted such low populations because of the lack of moisture, but that's something that concerns me, is even if this works and I get it going, I mean, how much am I going to actually be able to interseed cover crops large scale over my operation, because we're just farming so many acres. And so that's the challenge that I'm going to have going forward, is even if I find the mix that works, is that I'm going to always have a challenge of one mix might work better earlier as opposed to later, and then raining during the planting season and how that'll throw things off. It's going to be a fun challenge, but it is going to be a challenge that we're going to have to think about on getting these cover crops in a dry and arid environment. Is how do you get that done when you're farming so many acres? So what's in the mix? Whenever I'm picking a cover crop mix, I try to get 2 brassicas, 2 broadleaves, 2 legumes, and 2 grasses. So because I have corn out here already, The grass I picked was cows. We did 1 pound of the cows. The legumes I picked were cowpeas and red clover. Those were at 2 pounds each. The brassicas I picked were African cabbage and daikon radishes. And then the broadleaves I picked were buckwheat and flax. So I want to dive into the reason why I picked each one of these. So I haven't had a lot of success on the cool season grasses like a lot of people have had. So I wanted to pick cows because I wanted the extra carbon being put out by the cows, because I felt like it would probably do well as far as putting more biomass out here, and it did. So I'm gonna probably try something else next year, you know, in this this particular mix, but that's what I went with this year. I'm not looking for supplemental grazing after this comes off. Like I will graze it, but the 3 things that I told you that I'm shooting for are the 3 reasons I'm doing this, not necessarily so I can have cattle out here longer period of time. The legumes I chose, cowpeas have done good for me in the past, so that's why I chose them as a warm season legume. And the cool season legume I picked, the red clover, I picked that because it will overwinter, and I want something growing out here over the winter. The 2 brassicas I picked, African cabbage and daikon radishes. I'm really excited for how they've done, because they've done better where the population of corn is lower. They get more sunlight, and they've really leafed out and are thriving well. They're flowering good, so I know they're attracting the insects, and they're putting down a deep taproot and bringing up more nutrients to share with the plants around them. So love those 2 in this mix. Probably going to add some more next year and see how they do. Buckwheat, I did it at 5 pounds. I love buckwheat. It does so well in this system, and it has a relationship with phosphorus where it's able to take phosphorus that's tied up with calcium, use it, and then when it dies, it releases it for the following crop. So buckwheat is a great one to have out there. I don't know that I've seen conflicting reports on whether it's currently, I mean, while it's active, if it's sharing phosphorus while it's growing. So, you know, the main focus there is the flowering and the benefit to the next crop. Flax has a relationship with mycorrhizal fungus, and it always does good regardless of the situation, it seems, I put it in, whether it's in a cool season mix with oats or out here interseeded in cover crops. So that gives you an idea of what I picked and why I picked it. And whenever you're picking a mix, what works in your area may not, what works in my area may not work in your area. So try a lot of different things as you get started and see what's going to work best for you. And always be trying new things. Next year I'm going to try new things. I'll probably keep everything I put in this particular mix and try some other stuff next year and see how it does. I will say my populations are a little lower because I put together this mix to do 13 pounds an acre, and then I actually only put out 11 pounds an acre while we were doing it on this particular dryland field. And then I did it higher where we interseeded cover crops into our Jimmy Red corn. So anyway, I hope that gives you guys an idea of the why we're doing it, the challenges we're facing, and then what particular mixes we chose. Next week, we're going to talk about Jimmy Red because one of you guys wrote in and said, hey, I want to hear more about your Jimmy Red corn. So if you guys have something that you want to see on our farm, leave it in the comments below. If you have a follow-up want to see a follow-up video from something I've talked about in the past I haven't covered recently, leave that in the comments below. Again, thank you guys so much for subscribing to the channel. I'm really humbled by 10,000 subscribers. It means the world to me, and you guys are a blessing to me. So hope to continue to keep putting out good content for you guys to view, and I'm hoping that this is blessing and helping other people. It truly blesses my life. So this is Jay Young signing off, and looking forward to seeing you next week.